So,
Hi everyone. Hi.
so how are you feeling today? Overwhelmed. Who is overwhelmed?
Let's see. I need to join.
While waiting for other people, just for 1 minute, we can answer this survey and then we can move on. We have one people who smiles and two overwhelmed people, and one is chilling. Yeah, great.
That was me. I was like, it's a holiday week in the United States, so we have like a 2-day work week. I'm trying to take it down as much as possible. I'm trying to almost do this is like the most I'll probably do the whole week.
Oh, really? What holiday says
Uh,
this season?
oh, it's Thanksgiving this week
Oh, yeah.
in the United States. So we are it's like a not real work week. It's like I feel like I call it pretend we work week. It's like it's kind of how things go when we have short weeks in the United States.
Oh, great. And then we can, I guess, continue. Thank you so much for your answers. And yeah, today we have Julia Johnson who will help us to, understand the problem solving and decision making. And Julie, I will need your help for this. Sorry.
Do you want me?
No, that's okay. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Julie Johnson. I'm a learning experience designer, and I've emerged in the last year and a half as a trainer because I also am a peer coach, and we're talking about some of those skills today. I do a lot of coaching. It's like I call it like micro coaching is like what it is. The skills we're talking about today are micro coaching skills that I've been trained on in the world of behavioral health. And I am the co-founder of a program called Integrate Trauma Informed Network. It's a community-based, like a community of practice, and we train on interpersonal communication and problem solving skills through like a trauma informed lens. So I'm pretty active. I talk on LinkedIn a lot about that. And then I'm also a freelance e-learning designer and consultant on accessibility. So that's the general feel of me.
Yeah, great to hear that. So I will start the presentation. Yeah, here we go.
All right. Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm getting used to the butter. So if I look a little bit like confused, just so now, like getting used to this format. All right, everyone. So welcome. My name is Julie Johnson. As I said, I am a e-learning experience designer, and I'm also a coach of many things, accessibility, and mostly problem solving and decision making skills. And most of my background in coaching comes from behavioral health in the United States. So, but I like to bring in some of those tools into my job as a learning experience designer, because in no other place have I noticed my skills come into use than in being on teams and then working with myself in these kind of scenarios where we have to make small changes in a quick period of time, right? And the tools we're talking about today are not meant for like big, huge changes. Like they're not like, changing, they're not like an LMS change. This is like little small incremental changes we might need to change while we're in process in a project. Okay, so our learning targets today are I can use PICBA, okay, which is our problem solving tool to find small actionable solutions. I can use the balanced decision-making table to organize and streamline the decision-making process. And I can use motivational interviewing tools effectively to find authentic solutions with supportive communication techniques, because problem solving and communication all kind of go together. Like, so we're going to be talking about those tools. And then at the end, if you find me on LinkedIn, I will be posting an ebook of all of the tools we talk about today, so you can download it later on. So, or you and I'll put the slides up here on my LinkedIn later. Okay. Okay, so the big thing that I know about being a learning experience designer, and tell me if this is true for you, feel free to get into the chat and talk. I asked my L&D crew this last week, how many of you feel confident in your decision-making skills? Or you can raise your hand, you can give a thumbs up, or any other emotion that comes up when we start talking about decision-making. Okay. Let's see here. Open the chat.
Daniel, you can talk. I actually gave you the permission, but
Oh, sorry. I thought I raised my hand, but it was a question. But I'm also new to Butter, so that's why. Sorry.
no problem.
Okay, 50-50. Yeah. That's about, and I've coached a couple of learning experience designers in my world that are, and some chief learning officers on their ability to make micro decisions, as I'm now calling them, because we're not taught that. We're taught to be kind of, as Aunt Pugh calls it. He's one of I'm in his community of practice. We're taught to be box checkers. We're not, but yet we are still making decisions. Yeah, so exactly, standardizing the situation. That's kind of what I've been doing for myself, bringing these coaching skills in over the last year and starting to standardize them for learning experience designers and for people in like project management and that work in teams in the business world. And but you all are decision makers, right? You are decision makers. It's just for some reason we don't give ourselves the credit to be decision makers. So I just want to give you all the credit back to that. You all are like chief decision makers, even if that people don't give us that title. We actually are chief decision makers. Heather says, in my role, I'm a subject matter expert in the type of learning that I am designing. I moved from doing a role to training roles. So I'm confident in decision making. The tricky part is explaining the process to non-SME colleagues who don't have the context to understand why. This is exactly what we're doing today. This is the why. Okay. These can be done one-on-one or as a team. All right. And the thing that I like about the tools I'm giving you all today is they're meant to be done in short sessions, but they're meant so everybody understands there's a workable protocol through it. So it's not just one person that's working through the problem. Everybody is working through the problems transparently. So that's always been my problem with it, is that there's like one person that like is coaching through this process that nobody else knows about. And the whole concept of peer coaching is that everybody knows what the concepts are and there's no mystery as to what we're doing. Kind of like objectives and outcomes. Okay. So, like I said earlier, we're our decision makers. We make decisions all the time. Many of us, if we're in training like Heather, we are I feel like trainers, typically from my experience, are probably more confident decision makers because we have to make decisions on the fly with people in real time a lot of time, and in workshop facilitators like right now. But we are, and I just wanted to give us that credit back. And these are some of these decisions that we work with, working with subject matter experts. Like I just made a decision yesterday with a SME I'm working with on a difference we had in how we're going to put together this one course we're writing together, but I ended up making the decision, and I was like, oh, I made a decision, but I did actually have to work through my own protocol that I'm going to teach you later on, because it was just kind of a weird situation, but it was my call to make, but it was a micro decision, and she ended up being okay with it because we worked through this protocol together. So it was great to have that. Oops, what am I doing? Wrong one. Okay, so what's the basis of these tools? So if any of you are in the United States, the basis of these tools are from a behavioral therapy, behavioral coaching concept called dialectical behavior therapy. I don't know if you all have ever heard of that. It's very common. Is that common in Europe, in your area too? Okay, dialectical behavior. And it means you're always looking at both things. You're never looking at just one side. You're constantly balancing the pros and the cons. Okay. And so these tools are meant to be used when little changes are being sought out. Okay. We use this a lot I was trained on these in the recovery community when I was coaching in recovery, but they also work in business and they also work in a lot of these in coaching and in small business consulting as well. So I like to use them when these 3 questions cannot be answered or when we're stuck here. Where are we going? Where are we now? How will we get there? Okay. Those are the kind of like the overarching questions, and when I need to pull in, when we need to have some coaching sessions, when we need to like pause and be like, let's have like a little bit of a talk. So when we can't answer, where are we going? Where are we now? How will we get there? Then we start to pull in some of these troubleshooting tools, micro coaching tools. Okay. So the first one is called PICBA, which means problem, impact, cost, brainstorm, and action. Again, this one is a protocol. Sometimes I will actually print off this acronym and put it on a Zoom, and so that way people can see it, just like I'm doing right here, right now, except mine's like bigger. Mine's like an infographic. I've made it 12 different ways. And we'll work through these problems, okay? And, we're looking at what's the problem and what's the impact of the problem, what's the cost. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's labor, energy. We're looking through those. What solutions do we have? And then what's one small action we can take? Again, we're not looking for big action. We're looking for like one small action forward. So that's why we call it micro coaching. Okay, so here's an example. So I consult a lot on accessibility, and my background is in assistive technology and e-learning. So I have a little bit of some SME-ness in that world. So a lot of the times I'm working through this. I'm working through accessibility. I know Dawn DePerry is coming up here in next month, and she will be talking with you all about accessibility. So I thought this was great. I can maybe come in and sneak in how can you use accessibility within the context of problem solving, because I have never been in a situation with accessibility ever in my 16 years doing this where I have never problem solving through accessibility ever. So I like using these tools with accessibility best practices. So this was a problem that I had at a company about 6 months ago, and I was just I shortened the problem into this as an example. So the problem we had was the workflow didn't allow for an accessibility feature to be created, but there was an organizational requirement from DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, that all courses had to be 508 compliant. Okay, so our workflow was not compliant with, again, our DEI goals. So and we were also tired, and we had a very short window to work to get this thing launched. So what would have been the impact of the problem was there was team burnout and excessive accessibility errors. So then we had to work through together with the project manager and the accessibility UX designer. The company and their inclusive reputation was also at cost because they were a DEI. They kind of put that into their mission and vision and ethics. So we were going against the company's mission and vision if we didn't do this, and then possibly future lawsuits because they were an inclusive based company that liked to put out 508 compliant solutions. But this, unfortunately, because of some decisions other places, it wasn't happening at that point in time. So there was a lot on the table if we didn't do anything. So we brainstormed a couple of solutions. None of them were perfect because this is not a solution where these are not tools we look at where we're looking at perfection. We're looking at what's the going to be the best practice moving forward. And then we can have make a longer term goal later on down the road. So at this point in time, in the 11th hour, we decided as a company that we were going to go ahead and we were going to include captions and the alt text. We could do that. So something small, but then we also wrote I helped them write a continuous improvement plan where they would reach a DEI, where they would create a better workflow that would make the DEI department a little bit happier. And then we submitted that to their department and HR too. So that was kind of our action statement. So we kind of had a short-term solution, and then we made a longer-term plan. And I did make sure that that happened. That was my part of my job. So that's one way we use PICBA. Okay. And you all will have an opportunity here at the very end where you guys are going to work through a problem yourself, or another problem maybe that's coming through for you. So I'll have a scenario for you. You can work through if there's a problem that you want to work through together with your team. Feel free to use that one as well. Okay. Any questions about that one before I move on? Okay. So when we're working through these problems, a lot of the other pieces, the kind of the thing that rides kind of parallel to problem solving is motivational interviewing. Is how can we talk to each other in a respectful way where we're not infighting, we're not, being frustrated, because because emotions run high whenever, especially when accessibility comes onto the table, because there's a lot there because it's personal, right? So I like bringing in motivational interviewing where we ask open-ended questions. We affirm people's ideas. Even if we don't agree, we at least affirm them, hear them out. I hear what you're saying. And also, this could be great in this situation, or I see it as a problem here. So we can affirm people's ideas without dismissing them. Another thing we do is called reflective listening, where we ask questions that ensure that you are listening and responding to people's thoughts. Okay. And then summarizing. Summarizing would be like Damla, if Damla was like, I hear Julie talking about open-ended questions right now. She's so it would be summarizing what someone said, just to show that you were paying attention to their points. Those are all great techniques you can use to help just making sure that people feel heard and understand in these short micro teaming sessions. Okay. And there's a lot out there. I'm sure this is not the first time you'll have heard about motivational interviewing. So anyway, but they all go together. So, oh, there we go. Okay. So the next tool we're talking through is the balanced decision-making table. And this one is, again, where are we bringing it in? When we can't answer the question, where are we going? Where are we now? And how will we get there? Okay. So when we can't answer these questions, or when we're stuck here, this is where we kind of have to learn, okay, we need to take a pause and pull out this tool and start to problem solve. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's the balanced decision-making table. Okay, Heather has a question.
We have a question. Yeah.
We have a question. Okay.
I'm so sorry, I misclicked. I was trying to click on something else, and
Okay, that's fine.
I don't have a question. I'm focused and paying attention.
Okay. Yeah, you're good. So here's a process of the balanced decision-making table, right? So accessibility or anything like that, I work lots of times in terms of in diversity, equity, inclusion, obviously for an DEIA. So that's where I work. So we use this a lot because the change is always underneath this. It's great for personal decisions. 100% you can use this. That's how I started, was doing personal coaching with people in recovery. And then I was like, hey, we can actually use this in business. Absolutely. 200%. There's no place in your life where you cannot use this. So yeah. So again, what's the benefit of changing? Right? So we're looking at the benefit, the first thing, but then there's also a cost to a benefit. Okay. How do we identify the cost of not changing? Okay. And then number 3 is, what will be the cost for the change? There's always a cost for changing. Okay. And then who or what will benefit when the change is made. So you move through that process, okay, to see how change can benefit you specifically, right? Or sometimes maybe it won't benefit you. And you can stop sometimes and you can maybe look at number 3 and say, you know what, it might benefit us, but you know what, we're not going to make that change right now. But you get to see the whole picture, right? That maybe that cost isn't worth it, even though it will benefit us in the future, right? So here's an example. I have accessibility on this one just because that's kind of my real life experiences at the moment, but I've done these also with mental health in the workplace as well. So this was again one where we were again looking at captions. Was this one? Yeah, we were looking at captions. I didn't say that in there, but it was generally how are we going to add captions in? Most people more people will use their content if they had captions for this video course. That was the benefit of the change of making these changes to these videos. Identify the cost, okay, of not doing it. That was letting down our DEI and HR people, okay, and definitely having lots of issues and compliance issues with HR in the United States. And less people can use the product. That's not good. Less money is made. And then, but what will be the cost? Well, labor. It was going to be about $2,000 of time and people in our team, and possibly losing staff, losing contract IDs because we were tired. We were burned out because we did this late in the game. So we had a lot of really tired contract who didn't have a lot of bandwidth to do a lot of captions. And so we did end up doing it. We ended up making those changes. And they did end up having a 30% profit gain by having these captions put in for these e-learning courses. So this is kind of one example. I was just using accessibility because that's kind of an area I consult in, but you said you can do it for personal. Could you give a learning designer an example using this table? Yeah, so I mean, accessibility is one. So another example would be if you were using, so I would say in a learning experience design situation, would be like making a change inside of articulate storyline, right? Maybe there's going to be a shift in one of the layers, right? Are you going to add layers to it? Are you going to get complex? So you can do it in design too. So again, it can be small or big. Mine, of course, are in accessibility, but you could do it in terms of how you lay out an analysis. You could put it into the ADDIE if you're having issues in your analysis phase, right? That's why I said that's why if you go back to those last 3 questions in here, where are we going? What are we doing now? And how will we get there? If you can't answer those questions in your analysis phase of a problem, that's where you would use this. Does that make sense? That's okay. That's one example. So yeah, so you can put it in wherever, but the analysis phase is one. I was just giving really quick ones because that was kind of where my headspace was at the time. But analysis, when you're problem solving an analysis phase, another one that we talk about a lot in Aunt Pew's community is e-learning or not. Do we have to do e-learning? Can we talk ourselves out of e-learning with this? Can we, you could probably, a lot of people e-learning isn't always the thing, but you could help use I'm not knocking e-learning, but it's not always the solution. But you could use this to help talk some of our people that love e-learning, they think that's the only solution. You could help them find other solutions in this, right? Using both of them. It might take both of them, decision making and problem solving together, to help them get out of that. But it would be a good way if you follow Kathy Moore's book. This is a great thing that you can use in her what is that? In her work. So, which my brain, I can't find her process she works through, but it's the business model. Yes, it's a great book, but this is perfect for that. And that's actually Map It. Thank you. Thank you, Praveen. I appreciate that. But yeah, this is a great opportunity, a great way in that process where you could use that. You could use this to kind of help talk people out of that e-learning and kind of more moving into maybe it's just going to be a job aid. That's a great example. And I highly recommend you actually use those. That's actually one of the, in Aunt Pew's group, I actually did post these, and I got a lot of people were like very thankful because you can use that in that process of consulting people into looking at other ways of doing e-learning, or sorry, doing instructional design and solving business problems outside of e-learning. Yay, I know. that's one of the things I love about this process the most is it gives a why. And that was the whole concept. It gives the why. So, and it shows them the cost and the benefit. So, that's great. I guess the PICBA helps work out what to bring. Yes, exactly, Heather. Yes. So PICBA is, yes, as Kathy Moore talks about understanding what actually needs to change. Yes, right. So PICBA would be, that could be like a whole second one, is how to use peer coaching with Mapit. I could that would be like a whole secondary thing. Thanks for that idea. So PICBA would be like, you use them both together because you might get into what's the cost in here, and you might be like, oh shoot, we can't really make a decision. And you might have to move over to decision making. Okay, and use those together. And again, in Kathy Moore's book, when you're really analyzing what the problem is and what the core issues are that a business is facing, that's where PICBA would be great with Kathy Moore in that first phase, where what is their core problem, right? Looking at the different behaviors of employees, is it the environment? You can do PICBA in all these different little areas of the environment, and kind of start to see it if you're like, I don't know, for some reason I'm picturing like a mirror with all these little PICBA points on it, like in Kathy Moore's process. So anyway, yes. So clearly, yes, this is how you can use it in learning experience design. So it's your turn. I have an example from accessibility, but if you want to use e-learning in this experience, please feel free to think through that as an option as well, since that came up with each, in our session. So as an experienced instructional designer, you face a dilemma. You release an inaccessible e-learning course to meet a deadline, or you push the deadline back, prioritizing accessibility. The choice weighs your professional values against disappointing clients and impacting your company's reputation. It's a challenging decision, torn between accessibility and meeting deadlines. So you can do that, or you can look at how would you use these tools to talk someone, into another way of solving a business problem that isn't e-learning. So if you want to go into your breakout sessions and discern that, you can kind of decide what you all want to discuss, or maybe something else, and come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I will send you the breakout rooms.
Oh, me? Or
No,
people?
no. Not you.
Okay.
I think butter has changed. Yeah. How was the breakout room?
It was nice. People way more experienced than I am, so I learned a lot.
It's always great.
Yeah.
So I saw 2 breakout rooms, and do you want to explain us what you talked during the breakout rooms?
Oh, me? Oh,
Anyone who like to talk can talk at the moment.
okay.
Yeah, I think time is always a constraint. By the time we figured out and introduced ourselves, we had very few minutes to actually work on the case. So our team, we kind of selected the scenario that was given to us, which is the accessibility issue of the e-learning course. So we used the PICBA model to kind of brainstorm to what the problem was, what is the impact it is going to create, and all other factors, right? So others can also contribute. So the problem here is the choice between letting out of a course which doesn't have the accessibility features plugged in, vis-a-vis meeting a deadline for the client, right? So that was one of the problems, and we had actually typed it in the chat box, and we lost everything once we came back to the main room. So I think there is an accessibility issue here as well. We could have prepared much better,
Yeah.
right? So that was one, and the impact it was going to create is definitely it is going to create you meeting the deadline, but if the learner, the prospective learner, is unable to get value out of the course because some accessibility features are missing, it is not going to do a world of good for that person, right? So that the impact is more in terms of the value for the brand, and also you losing out on many learners because word of mouth will spread and they will say that it's not worth taking this particular course, right? Things of that nature. And what was the third one? I forgot.
Go on, Heather. I'll let you
I
go.
was about to say you had a really good point about mandatory learning.
Yeah, so in terms of the costing, we talked about, like, in our business, I know when we don't complete the mandatory learning, there is a cost implication, and we get fined if we get an audit and all that kind of stuff. So I think we were talking about that, and we was also talking about, like, if we had to edit, say, an e-learning design or add alt text and all that kind of stuff, all of that costs money because it will take you time to do that. So time is money, right? So yep.
We also spoke of tangible cost and intangible costs. The tangible cost is directly, so you need more people to work on this product to complete it with all accessibility features. So it requires time, money, effort, energy, focus, all of that. The intangible cost is what value it is going to add or what value it is not going to add to the learner at the end of the day, right? So that's what you need to make a balanced choice here. So while we were brainstorming, we thought that it's okay to kind of push the deadline, but go with a sophisticated product which adds value to the learner, because learner is most important, right? Because he is the person who is going to value the most. And after that, our time was over.
Excellent, Praveen. I hands up. Like I can't find my hands up on here, so I get my real hands. There we go. That was excellent. And way to use them both. You all rocked. Gold stars for you all. Like, way to understand you got through the cost and then you could work over to the decision-making table to finish. Nice. Phenomenal. Way to model that. Good job, you all. Anything else? Or questions?
I guess I was also wondering if there was any kind of wriggle room in the contract with the client that might allow us to release in stages. So with full accessibility, where stage one meets the original deadline, and then that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. I'm like, I do that all the time with my when I'm by myself and I'm working in a team. But if I can do that with a stakeholder and they'll let us do a rollout, then I think rollouts are much kinder to teams than the full product. Sometimes you're like, we're gonna get stage one done and it'll be accessible. And so that's a long-term thing you can do, or you can, that's something you can bring to the table in the analysis phase if and start talking through, a rollout as an option for your for the design and development process too, if we're working through the ADDIE, that is. 100%.
So, Julie, I also shared the book that you sent me. Would you like to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so these are just it's a job aid book is really what it is. It was like it's just a book of job aids of all the things we just went through. I think PICBA's in that one. I'm pretty sure it is. It should be. If not, I'll post it up again on my LinkedIn. There's one that doesn't have PICBA and one that does, but anyway, so I made an e-learning book of all the different types of communication and problem solving skills that we went over today, so you all can have a copy yourself, so you can also put it up on your on a board, or you can take a screenshot of it and put it on a Zoom so your teams can work through it too. So you know, I always like, this was actually a problem we had. The reason how this became a thing for us was it was actually a problem I had on a team, and I found myself working through the problem, and then I was like, oh, I should create a course on it, and then I was like, no, I don't, we just need job aids. And so then it became an ebook that I now have that like I use on LinkedIn all the time. So it really just needs to be a job aid. No e-learning.
Do you have any other question? I think. Oh yeah, Julie's LinkedIn profile. Let me share it as well.
Okay. Yeah. I'll share it later today on I'll share it here in a second on my LinkedIn. So I talk a lot about this. I'm doing a lot of reskilling and upskilling consulting right now. So I use this a lot in the reskilling and upskilling process with teams, because a lot of teams aren't hiring they're hiring internally and not externally right now. So I'm doing a lot more of that, and how we make these decisions, how we use PICBA decision-making models to make those reskilling and upskilling decisions too. Oh, great. Thank you. I'm so glad to see you all. That's awesome. Thank you. Great, great, great.
So I think we can wrap up the session if you don't have any question at the moment.
Good to go.
Well, great. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. So this is a tradition. If you would explain today's session with only one word, so what would you tell us?
One word is challenging. Do you really mean one word?
Yeah, one word. Only one word.
It's a challenge.
Accessible. I love that.
Where do I type? How?
This Christmas, it could be you. The National Lottery. Rules and procedures apply.
Is there somewhere I can type something, or do I just put it in the chat?
It doesn't matter, yeah.
That.
Same page with colleagues. It is not one word.
I put it here. Oh yeah.
PICBA. It is kind of like a.
It's quite catchy.
Energize. Problem solving. I don't problem solving. We need tools to problem solve.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I think we can end the session and see you next time. Oh, Heather, you have a question.
Yeah, I guess when it's coming to socializing the model with colleagues, and they kind of go, "Oh, it was originally developed for people with like." I was sorry. I was doing some quick googling. Like if it's a model that's originally used to help people with borderline personality disorder. I think that's what it was. How does that tend to come across in the workplace? Like, how do you tend to kind of explain that even if it was developed in this context, it can be used in other contexts, and not for there not to be stigma around that? Because I think it's a great tool, but it's kind of, how do other people tend to react?
No, I just say it's, it's evidence-based, and that we're using this from a change model. We use this because this is evidence-based for change, and whether someone's changing behaviors for personal reasons or for mental health reasons, or we're changing a status, change is change. That's kind of how I take it. There's no science, change is change, and how, if we have evidence bases through change, whatever the change is, can happen, so that's kind of how I take it, how I put it forth. And lots of times I end up getting people, at least in the States, because we have such a high mental health issue right now with COVID and kind of what's happening. Sometimes people like it because it actually gives them support for their process because it is evidence-based and because it has been put through our process for things we feel safe with.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Heather. That was a good question.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
See you
Bye.
next time.
Bye. Thank
All right,
you.
bye.